They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but I do not believe that that is the case when it comes to making internet videos. So today I am back with yet another set for you guys to take a look at, and this may be the most powerful one I have seen in Season 10. What we're looking at today is, of course, the Shadow's Mantle for the Demon Hunter. This is also referred to as the impale set because you are using impale as pretty much your only form of attack pretty constantly, and you don't have any kind of generation associated with it. So how do you keep up all that hatred? Well, that's where Carlisle's point comes in. This is one of those sets where you can't kind of make it work with some of the pieces. You absolutely need every piece, and that makes it ridiculously powerful. So Carlisle's point here returns 13 hatred if it hits an enemy already impaled. Now, that may not sound great. You hit one enemy, what's that going to do you? Well, turns out that if you carry around the Holy Point Shot as your quiver, you're going to be able to throw an additional 2 knives. So now we're up to 3 enemies that we're hitting. But we're not done yet. We're actually going to be running the Ricochet rune along with our impale, which means that it's going to bounce to 2 additional nearby enemies. So when you get guys really clumped up, you're throwing 3 knives and they're bouncing to 2 other people apiece. Now you're looking at hitting 9 guys at a time with your first impale. Now, where does that come in? What kind of difference does that make? Well, if you look at your full set bonus here, impale deals an additional 40,000% weapon damage to the first enemy hit. So the first guy you hit with it is going to really take a wallop, and then it can bounce after that. But if you're carrying around a melee weapon, you're doing on top of all of that ridiculousness and another 1,200% damage. So when you start stacking stuff up, and everything's been optimized, we're taking a lot of impale damage increases, that kind of stuff with as many of these as we can carry. So we're really hitting hard on that first hit. We're bouncing to 9 people total. So every time we hit, we're picking up over 100 hatred, and we can only carry 150. So that's going to keep our hatred 100% full pretty much all the time, which is nice because of what we're running in our cube. See, this is one of those things, like I'm telling you, you need every single item. So the Cuirass here in our cube, while above 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. We're going to be above 90% pretty much constantly. So we're always going to be taking half damage right here. Over here, we're going to be getting an additional 40% armor for our bladed armor. So our Fan of Knives, we're going to be casting that on cooldown constantly. Vengeance, big part of this. We're running Dawn right here. It's going to reduce the cooldown of this by over half. So we're going to be able to keep this one up pretty much constantly as well. If you can get enough cooldown reduction through your Paragon levels and through some of your equipment, you're going to be able to keep this up constantly as well, reducing damage by another 50%. So you see, I've got 20 million toughness here. I've got 600,000 health, but that toughness really starts stacking. But you see, we're not exactly putting out quite enough damage yet. So we have this belt here that after using Impale, Vault costs no resource for the next 2 seconds. That's going to be kind of nice because we're going to use the Rattling Roll rune with our Vault, knocking enemies away and stunning them for a second and a half. Not a huge stun, but with the Strong Arm Bracers, enemies hit by knockback suffer 27% increased damage for 6 seconds. So we're going to get a free Vault because we've impaled some guys, and then we're going to buff our damage to them by even more over and over again. We're going to continue to buff this. So on top of that, while you're vaulting around, as you see right here, you see these numbers start changing around over here. So we're using the Endless Walk, which is something I run on just about everybody. And that's going to be, while moving, damage taken is reduced by up to another 50%, while standing still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. So very quickly, we're able to run along, tumble through guys, ramp up our survivability, ramp up our damage. As soon as we stop, we start stacking up that damage. So it's, all in all, this is a ridiculous build. And I am actually using Unity, and I am equipping the enchanting favor on my Templar here so he can't die, and I'm using Unity with him just to add that little extra bit of survivability. I'm not entirely sure it's necessary, and he also has the Oculus ring, so he's dropping those rings of power around us. So those are nice to have as well. Skill-wise, just to top it off for what we're doing, we do have Shadow Power, which has access to all of the runes because of our set, but we specifically have Night Bane up right here. You gain a ton of extra life per hit, and whenever you activate it, it gets even more ridiculous. So, and we also slow everybody around us, so that's nice. We have the awareness here, is necessary evil. If you get called out, you do something wrong, somebody just pops you one, you need to have this because you're going to come right back to life instead of going down. Numbing traps, enemies you slow, chill, or hit with Fan of Knives, Spike Trap, Caltrops, Grenades, and Sentry Fire have their damage reduced by 25% for 5 seconds. This is kind of nice because we're going to be popping that Fan of Knives when we get into a group, and that's just going to really ramp up our survivability because we're taking that additional armor, and then we're going to reduce their damage output, which is very nice. Cull of the Week, increased damage against slow or chilled enemies. We're going to keep doing that. We're going to be popping these guys pretty regularly because we're going to pretty much be slowing them down at all times as we knock them away and do all that kind of thing. So that's nice there. And with our Shadow Power being Night Bane, we're slowing the enemy movement speed all around us. So we're constantly going to be slowing guys around us. So all of these are going to be triggering pretty constantly. And then we're going to do an additional 40% damage to enemies above 75% health. You're going to see their health immediately just pop, and that'll be it for them. And then they'll start slowly ticking away after that. So we do have marked for death here. Gives us an additional 15% damage to enemies in an area. So whenever you get enemies good and grouped up, you're going to drop down that ring, and then you're just going to start impaling the whole group. It's a really high damage set. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to show you guys exactly how this is played out. Okay, guys, so as you saw, that was not very pretty. There were definitely some mechanical issues there. I struggled. I think I tumble a little too much. I start panicking a little bit, and I think you need to stand still long enough to get that 100% extra damage increase in there. So I think that's definitely the biggest thing. As you could see, my personal best with this build was over 2 minutes faster than what I had and only had 1 death in it, whereas this one had, God only knows, 5, 6 deaths. It was bad. So when you're playing this set, one of the biggest things you have to really focus on is making sure that you keep that fan of knives coming off a cooldown constantly. Every time you get it, go ahead and get it out, and you need to do it inside of a group of enemies, because that group of enemies will then do a lot less damage. So that's one of the biggest things you can do out of that. The other thing that you really have to try to focus on is to tumble into a group, stun them, tumble right back out of a group, stand still, and then do the damage. So that's the biggest thing. Is I was using my tumble, or vault I should say, to really engage hard on guys. I came from playing a barbarian, I came from playing a crusader and all that stuff, so I really got in there a little too deep. So you need to tumble in, hit, tumble back out, just so that they get the stun put on them, so that you can go ahead and get that effect where you can do the extra damage for 6 seconds. So that's the biggest couple of critiques I have for the build there. Really not even for the build, really for my performance of the build. So it is a very solid set. It does make doing 70s quite possible. You just have to be a little bit more mechanically talented when you're playing a set like this. There are some sets that just blow through this a lot simpler. This one, I struggled a little bit. I think I did pretty decent though. We did make it through. We did complete the challenge. We did make it through. We did get the gems. We did get a ton of gear. So it is a really nice farm build. It can be a lot faster. It just needs a little bit more, I guess optimization is still the word. It still needs some work. I do still have some stuff that's just buffing life. I do still have some stuff that's just buffing vitality, you know, things like that. Could really use the little bit of extra damage that some of these pieces can give you. So as you go along, you'll find better and better gear, and that makes it a lot easier. If you guys are interested, join me Tuesdays through Friday. We usually do a live stream in the morning, and I did a lot better with this set running Greater Rift 70 this morning during the live stream when everybody was watching, surprisingly. So if you guys come on down to the YouTube channel at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, then you can dive into that chat and talk with other players who know a lot more specialty information about a lot of stuff. You can get a lot of great information down there from them. We do some multiplayer stuff and things like that. As always, guys, I really appreciate your support. I look forward to seeing you in the chat, and we'll see you in the next video.